So, as you can see, it is possible to change the world, even if you are not a prime minister or the leader of a major cooperation. You can just be a human being that is engaged in your society. So when we see the power of young kids, Hannah at 16, we can only be impressed, inspired, and also, I think, very happy that we see there is a chance that somebody will take on the challenge from Bjørn Haugland. We need to act to change the world. Those of you who were here yesterday met Roman, who's probably here still. Roman is an 18-year-old boy from Ukraine. He came here and talked about the challenges of Ukraine right now, talked with professors, judges, and top academicians and foreign politics people at the same level. It's so impressive to see these young people with a mission, and it's a powerful force. They can't be stopped. So the question is, how do we help young people find their mission and run with it? This gives me a chance to invite Arne Osland up to the scene. Arne Osland is Director of Development at the United World Colleges, Red Cross Nordic. Young people from all over the world attend the United World Colleges, and they are the same age as Hannah and Roman. And here is a quote that the late Nelson Mandela said about the United World College. The striking feature of the United World Colleges is that they embrace the entire world across all divides of race, history, culture, wealth, religion, economic status, and political belief. They are unique and they are conscious of their responsibilities. So Arne, are you graduating many Hannah and Romans?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I think this was a fantastic introduction to us, Hannah, that we are in a very fortunate situation in that we can bring 200 students from all over the world. And I think, Hannah, you are the model of what we are looking for. So we are set here in Flekke in Western Norway. And we have these 200 very inspired people who come together. So it's a kind of both a small world, but the big world is represented. And what we're after is a purposeful diversity. We want people who previously had much too little, those who didn't have a pen, and put them together with people like us who by definition have had much too much. And that we see that is so mutually beneficial. The United World Colleges was set up to use education as a uniting force. We had the 50th anniversary last year. There are now 12 schools around in the world. We're growing to 14 in the autumn. And we are supported by voluntary organizations, national committees in more than 150 countries. Many of these people come from conflict zones. When the UWCs was set up, it was the Cold War, so the idea then was to bring people together from the old East and the West, and by them sharing their experience, that you should create a better world. There are still many tensions, conflicts in the world, so we are looking that people should come from the north and south, and also that we have regional conflicts represented. So Palestinians, Israeli, Western Sahara, Moroccans, from the different side of the conflict in Sri Lanka, and so forth. And gradually we're also more conscious about the conflicts that are not only between the nations, but inside of the nation. So to have one of the tensions in Europe, that we have a growing ambition to include more students that have a Roma background from Central Europe together with others. So they come there, they study together. The academic program is ambitious, but I think of equal importance is their whole life. So they're put together in rooms of 5, again, deliberately diverse, so that you learn from your daily life practices. And they also have a very ambitious community service program, so that they should feel that they are useful and that they should really take on a responsibility. In a few weeks' time, one generation would leave. So these are at the videregående level, gymnasium. They're going to leave. There's going to be lots of tears when the 100 leaves. And this is the same generation just when they arrived. So this is Esmeralda from Namibia. Now she is incredibly lucky. She's gained this full scholarship to come to Norway for 2 years. At the same time, I think, like Hannah, she's very brave because she's given up the safety of her whole life and she has to recreate herself. And we know that we both have roots, we also have feet, and this morning we also were reminded that actually we do hope that we have wings, that we can fly. So I think our task is to make them aware of all these potentials between yourself. That when you are moved from your original context, it's actually a situation where you become increasingly aware of the many facets of your old identity. And it also gives you incredible freedom to recreate yourself, so that you move, you become something new, yet you become to know that you're a whole person. We've done some research about what does actually the UWC produce. So last year we had 2 persons who are doing doctoral research within social psychology and sociology that are working on what is it actually, well, to what extent are they affected when it comes to their attitudes, and also what is it that makes the difference. And the conclusion that I just received earlier this week is to say that bringing a diverse group of people together, that is not enough in itself. So for what's important with the UWC is the UWC take an active role in the whole life of the person. It is the academic life, but it's also that they experience that they are being cared for by teachers who give a lot of themselves, both at day and also the rest of their lives, and also that their peers have a very supportive role. And that very early we give them a responsibility. So we keep our rules to a minimum, but first here in what we are setting in the introduction week is that you're responsible for both yourself and that the environment that you are recreated. So she experienced that she's taken seriously, she is empowered, but she also experienced that there are great expectations of what she should do, both when she's at the college and also later in life. So I think independence, that's important to learn, but I think fundamentally we are more after interdependence, that fundamentally we all depend on each other. Or to quote a Danish philosopher, Løgstrup, you've never got to do with another person without holding some of his life in your hands. I think that's central to what we're about. So our students come from all over the world to a very inspiring, beautiful context on the Norwegian west coast. They experience a lot of rain, they do that, but then we also have snow, which is fantastic. And I think for us it's important that they gain both to engage with the cultural landscape where you are and with the nature. I have a good colleague from South Africa. He'd hardly seen any snow in his life before. Now you can't stop him taking small groups of students to snow caves. And he thinks that going to a snow cave, that's the perfect learning environment. So Hannah, next year, maybe we can invite you to a snow cave trip together. And it's so fantastic. When you're in a snow cave, we're all pretty much the same. Some of us might have a bit more experience with snow, but when you're there, you need to learn how to take care of yourself. And also you can think about, can you help to take care of the others? Okay, your feet are wet. I actually have an extra dry pair of woolen socks. Would you have them? You might have a bit of tea for me. And you see how much those, so really, that's the kind of experience where you are sensitized to this. And also, they enjoy their little room when they come back to it later. So I think that's a good metaphor, one of the methods that we are using in our daily life. Another thing about the snow cave is also that most of the daily life we're talking in kind of middle range. But when we get together there, you talk about the very high thing, God and spiritual things, and also you talk about the very low things that smell. And so we like to take them up in snow caves when there is snow. So it's basically about finding a common ground, or not even only finding the common ground, but to create a common ground. And that is indeed what my hope is, that that should be the role of education, not only within the UWC, but that education, wherever you are, it should be a counterforce both to segregation and also a counterforce to something we learned yesterday. Yesterday we learned that the tyrants of the world, they have one personal trait in common. They're all narcissists. And I hope that education actually should also be a counterforce to narcissism. Finally, I'd like to end my session with in the later session, I'll be joined with Karian from Congo. Now, he's not one of our students. He's a bit older than you. He's not one of our students, but he's someone that we've got to know through our local interaction. And this local interaction, I think, is at the heart of what we're doing. So in our region, in Sogn og Fjordane, there are two places where there are people put together, 200 people coming from nearly 100 different countries. One is our college, United World College, and the other one is Bergum Asylmottak. At our place is somewhere where the people have truly wanted to come to. They have landed and the future is theirs. At Bergum Mottak, that's a place where people have been washed ashore from forces that is really beyond their control. And as part of, for us, it's very valuable to go twice a week. We fill up a bus and we go to Bergum. And we see how mutually beneficial it is both for the people at the Mottak and also for our students. And even better it becomes when they do something together in the local town of Førde. Because our students, they are incredibly trusting, they're incredibly brave, so wherever they go, they just go for it. Karian had told me at the Mottak, the atmosphere is more of everyone is a bit skeptical of each other when they are there, and also that they are a bit afraid when they go into the local community. But when you bring these three groups together, really the differences don't exist in the same way. So I very much hope that some of you will come to the session where Karian will talk. And his key metaphor is about, he says that life is a bit like a string instrument. And as a human being, you're both the instrument and the player. He talks about what really happens when some of these strings are broken. Because he used to be able to play beautiful on his, but he's been sensitive to, he's been taken out of his context and it doesn't sound quite the same. So our kids, they are, just take the next. So our kids, they've not been uprooted, but they've been taken away from the original context. I think it's a huge privilege to have them there together in that very creative context. They all get a global perspective on what they're doing, but they also experience it through a very personal way. So they become more aware of who they are themselves, and they have a readiness to see into the eyes of the other. So I think I'll leave it there. And
thank you very much. Yes. And you can go to sit down and